Sandstorm.
I want to talk about the system that we're trying to push forward with Giveth that we learned from the DAO, and kind of just use this as a base example to show you what we can do. And hopefully, I actually gave a very similar talk to this last year at Center Camp, and I'm hoping to push it forward to you guys again as we're starting to develop the ideas that I presented there. And I'm really hoping that you guys can use this to start your own little revolution in the worlds that you want. So right now, charity has a really bad name in this space. You know, there's a lot of good people that are working in the system of charity that really want to change the world, and yet they have to go through all the bureaucracy. They have to play all these games when all they want is to get their idea funded. And I want to enable that. I want to. The main goal that I have is to build communities around causes, to enable decentralized organizations to form around any concept or idea that anyone can imagine. So we're building an open source system where no one will ever take a cut of anything. We're just building open source software that people can use to build a community around the cause. So does anyone have a cause that they're really excited about supporting that needs funding? Sorry? Education for girls in developing countries. That is such a great cause. Thank you so much. We really do need that. So if we went that route, right? If you wanted to start your own, what we're calling a DAC, a decentralized altruistic community, blah blah blah. Sorry, but that's what we're calling it. So basically, if you want to start your own community around this cause, then you could go to a website and just click a couple buttons, fill out a form, and boom, you have your own nonprofit. You don't have to fight through you have to file 1c3, blah blah blah. You don't have to do that, right? And anyone in the world could send money to support this cause. And they would send money effectively to you, but you can't use that money. We're using smart contracts on the Ethereum blockchain to handle all the accounting transparently. Sorry. So you don't have to worry about getting an accountant or getting a lawyer to do all the paperwork. This is all done for you. This is the magic of smart contracts, which we can explain later in Q&A if you guys want to go there. But so. People will send money to you, and all of a sudden you have, let's say, if you do a great job of promoting your idea, hey, we need money here, right? Then all of a sudden there could be $1 million in this fund for educating women around the world, educating young girls. What was the cause again? Educating young girls in developing countries. So you'll probably have to define what developing countries are and blah blah blah. But you could raise a lot of money into that, and then anyone in the world could see this as almost a decentralized grant program where people can create grassroots, people from the grassroots or whatever. Anyone with an idea to help girls in developing countries could jump in there and say, hey, I got this idea. And then there's kind of a competition a little bit of what projects should be funded. This is what we saw with the DAO. The DAO raised $150 million. Totally ridiculous. There's no reason for that. But it did. And people came out of the woodwork with amazing ideas. A lot of those ideas are now being ICO'd and are in the Ethereum space. But so many of them actually premiered because there's this big bounty saying, hey, anyone with a cool idea, come here because we have money for you, right? And so in this system, the donors who sent money to the fund, to the DAC, they would have complete control of their funds the entire time. If they'll receive a delegate, somebody who is maybe more excited about the space, maybe they're already a big donor, and they're going to kind of help them decide where to send it. And the big thing that we're trying to do is anytime someone sends money, that's an opportunity to connect someone. Unlike the current charitable space right now, where there's a big corporation effectively, they're trying to use the corporate business model to make the world a better place. I mean, I don't know. It seems like a bad idea to me, but maybe it could happen, right? So these guys are middlemaning between the donors, the people who have money and want to change the world, and the people with the actual change makers, the people with the plan and the time to make that change a reality. And we want to connect them. We want the donors to actually know who's going to use their money and talk to them, generate ideas with them, like work with them, collaborate. And if we get all these guys in like a Slack group or a Facebook channel or something like that, whatever you would want to use as your main source of communication, get them all talking and get them all generating ideas and seeing what works, And as a project gets funded, let's say that somebody wants to build a school in the Philippines. And I love the Philippines. It's a great place. And they definitely need more schools and they need more women being supported through the educational system. So if you want to, maybe to build a school, it costs $200,000. Well, once they raise that money, it's locked in place. Until then, the donors actually had control, at least in the system I'm building. It's open source, so someone could change that. But the system we're pushing, the donors would have control the entire time until it's locked for a specific purpose. And then once it's locked, the people that are building this school would know that they have confidence that they can start investing in that project. So, but here's the thing, in the normal charity space, like even in a Kickstarter or something like that, you send someone money and then they have all the money and then you have to kind of hope that they do the good work. I think that's unnecessary. At least with digital currencies and smart contracts, it is completely unnecessary. It's an escrow system. It's not something we just invented. It's been around for a long time. There's $200,000 there, but maybe they only get $10,000 to start their project. And then they have to complete specific milestones to receive more funding, right? And as they complete their milestones, they receive more funding. And let's say they get to milestone 4, and all of a sudden the Filipino government says, no, I'm sorry, man, we're not going to educate women. We don't want to do that. And they just completely stop them. Okay, well, we lost some money, maybe $50K, but the rest of the funds, the $150,000, can go back to the people whose money hasn't been allocated to that. And then that could go back into the system where it can go help other projects that are trying to do the same thing. That's in like just a really quick overview of how the money flows, but the real magic is in the community and the discussions and getting everybody together so that they can figure out what ideas work. And when somebody does have an awesome way to educate women, to like start bringing this up, then that can explode virally through that community. It can be copied and reworked, just the same way I copy everything Daryl does in Camp Contact at Decentral, right? Like it's all open source, and this is the magic. And beyond that, if we want to get really complicated, people can form their own decentralized governance systems, which Jordy, who also works with me at Giveth, is going to go deep into. We're talking liquid democracy, futurarchy. I don't want to steal his thunder, but he's yeah.
Sorry, what can you tell us what
Giveth is an open source platform for building communities around. Oh, so she asked what was Giveth. It's really just platform. We ourselves are trying to model the DAC, try to be the first DAC, try to be a blockchain-based entity that's trying to do good work. Our good work is building the platform. So the platform, yeah, there are coins, but our coins have no value. So we're not trying to make money at all. We're actually just a nonprofit charity base that we're trying to create decentralized governance systems for charities. We're trying to build complete transparency and accountability for people that are trying to do good around the world. And to make it easy, to make it easy to start a project. If you just want to do something small, you want to start a little small animal shelter, or you want to, even wouldn't it be nice? Okay, for example, Decentral. We're actually using the Giveth platform. I've heard, I've never actually talked to anyone who, any of these leaders, but I've heard that some camp dues are not really, well used in Burning Man. Well, we wanted to bring complete accountability and transparency to that system. So everyone in my camp, at Camp Decentral, sent their dues in Ether. And for me to get the dues out, I actually had to show a receipt to say what I'm buying. And then I get, depending on what it is, some of it is infrastructure, so I get 50% of that, and then the rest I'm fronting the next year's camps are going to have to pay and stuff like that. And we have a completely transparent system. So you can go to the website right now and you can see all the costs that were incurred for Camp Decentral. You can see that we bought 10 carports and had to pay someone to build this cool light box, and we had to rent a dome. Not this light box. We have an awesome dome over there. I'm not going to say too much about it because it's pretty cool and it might get overpopulated. But yeah, so we're bringing that accountability into everyday systems that anyone can start. I don't have to worry about banks or anything like that. I just know I can get paid by the blockchain when I submit the receipt, and it's also a little bit of practice for Giveth so that we can like figure out all the bugs. Yeah.
You talk about a lack of hierarchy, and the way you're describing it, one person may start an effort, and let's say they get 100 investors. 100 investors put their funds in whatever form into a block somewhere. That block then, through smart contract technology, will only release the funds when certain thresholds are met. Like, if I'm understanding what you're saying. Basically, if there's a change in mandate, like you said, in the Philippines, the government restricts the capacity to move forward in that direction, and somebody says, you know what, I want to go to another developing nation and do the same thing. The person who initiated the process might have the capacity to make that suggestion, but do they have the authority to do it, and what restricts them? What if everyone else says, I don't like that, I don't like the new country? I mean, that would seem like a hierarchy.
No. So the donors always have control of their funds at all times until it's locked for a specific purpose. So what happens when a donor sends money into a project like this, for example, they are assigned a delegate. And most of the time it's just going to be the person who started it. But as this system evolves, the other delegates can join. It's a permissionless system. Anyone can be a delegate. Anyone can be a donor. And so if a donor wants to be a delegate, they can just say, they can fill out a little form and register, because we want to have a reputation system and all these cool things, right? So they can make themselves kind of a registered donor and request and say, hey, I'm happy to be a delegate. So if you don't like how what's your name again that came up with the idea? Rose. If you don't like Rose as your delegate, I'm sure she's a great delegate, but maybe you don't like some of her decisions, you can actually become a delegate yourself, or you can go to another delegate. It's kind of the liquid democracy principle.
Like proxy voting.
Yeah, it's liquid democracy, which I know Jordy, who wrote Liquid Democracy for the DAO, which I was writing a blog post for the day before it got hacked. It's so sad. It was so amazing. His system was working. He only had a month to do it. He's like the best dev in the world. Anyway, but he will talk. I don't want to steal his thunder because I'm sure he's going to talk about liquid democracy. Any other questions? Yeah.
I want to ask a question that's possibly slightly off topic, but a lot of cryptocurrency enthusiasts that I've talked to are a little bit afraid of the rise of power of quantum computers and how that could hack and disrupt the blockchain. And I'm curious if you know a lot about like Tangle technology and other technologies that are supposedly resistant to those kinds of attacks, and just your thoughts on that in general.
So I haven't looked at IOTA too much. I was actually talking to Dominic Williams about this the other day. He's right out there. And he was saying the problem with IOTA is that it's really difficult to make a blockchain explorer. But in general, the fear of quantum computing is real. But it's not that crazy because that's just one piece of the decentralized system. And the magic of decentralized systems is that they are upgradable. And so people can hard fork. And we can change from SHA-256 in Bitcoin, which would be totally able to be manipulated in the age of quantum computing, to some to an encryption method that is not able to be manipulated by that. So I don't have so much fear in it, although I'm but only because I trust people are developing systems that we can upgrade to. You got to get a mic though.
Can you explain more what the DAO was and how it got hacked and what that has to do with Ethereum, where I've heard the Ethereum Classic split? Does that have any connection there?
Yeah, I can tell that story a little bit. So the DAO, I worked for Slockit, and our goal was to build a universal sharing network. I've been a nomad for a long time, and I really don't want to own things. I wanted to have like an access-based economy. And we constructed the DAO in the effort that maybe it could be running this access-based economy. This was, however, people who invested in the DAO, who sent money into the smart contract and received DAO tokens, they, in the end, got to choose whether or not we would be able to, whether or not to accept that project. So the DAO was almost like a decentralized venture capital fund in a way, where it was, but it was the first example of a decentralized governance system using smart contracts. Bitcoin itself, Ethereum, and all these other digital currencies are absolutely DAOs. And actually, we found out the DAO wasn't a DAO because it was able to be hard forked by Ethereum. So it was like it was almost a DAO, but it was subservient to the DAO of Ethereum. But that's a whole different story. But basically, the DAO had this cool thing where anyone who sent money could vote proportionally to the amount of money they spent on what projects to support and what projects to invest in. And if you didn't like what projects the DAO was investing in, you could actually split the DAO and create your own sub-DAO. We had a dream that maybe there would be thousands of DAOs using this protocol. And in most of the podcasts I talked about back, this is like 2 years ago, I was really excited about the nonprofit opportunities for decentralized autonomous organizations, where you can just, because this is the magic of open source. You take the code, you copy it, and you produce it you reproduce it. Maybe you tweak it a little bit so that it works for your use case. And the DAO was the first one because it was the first one that we created because it was what we needed to create our universal sharing network, so everyone could share objects effectively and create an access-based economy. But it didn't work out because there was a bug in the contract. It was a pretty complicated bug, and a hacker found it. The problem was, I don't know why people spent $150 million in this thing. We did not expect that. We had no clue that was going to happen. The Solidity programming language was only 8 months old, and to expect that there wasn't going to be some bugs, if not just in the programming language, but in the code ourselves that we wrote, it was pretty risky. But people did it anyway, and a hacker found a bug, and he created some crazy smart contracts and was able to send DAO tokens to the DAO in an effort to split the DAO and then extract money, but then like recycle those DAO tokens over and over again, so it could use the same DAO tokens to pull out new ether over and over again. It was a big problem, and I stopped writing Jordy's blog post, and we had like a major issue in Ethereum. However, we had a fail-safe built in where any money that goes into a split is locked in there for 35 days. So the Ethereum community was able to kind of all agree that this hacker, because at that time Ethereum was not as valuable as it is today, and the DAO held 14% of the entire currency. And so the hacker ended up stealing about 4 or 5% of the total ether in existence out of the DAO. So when that became a full community issue, and the Ethereum community kind of said, well, since the money is stuck there, it's not like it's going to exchanges. It's really easy to just create a new version of Ethereum, and where we steal the money back from the hacker. Basically hack the hacker with our own new software. It was a really bold thing, and there were a lot of people saying this was against the rules of digital currencies in general. There's a concept, an ethos of immutability, and this hacker followed the law, followed the code, right? However, it was still stealing, because the spirit of the law is what matters, at least in the legal world, and at least I'm more of a heart-spaced guy. I'm not that much of a cold coder. So to me, it was clear that we need to get the money back to the people who were stolen from. Not everyone agreed, though, and that's the magic of digital currencies. This is the magic of this technology, is this Ethereum Classic split. Because even though there was pretty much a general consensus in the Ethereum network, despite what you may have read in the news, like no one from Ethereum went to Ethereum Classic, there was still a new currency created where the hacker still had funds, because some people disagreed. most of them were Bitcoin maximalists that were worried about Ethereum taking over, and they wanted to use this as a way to attack the network. However, this is still magical because it proves that you cannot use this technology to impose values against anybody ever, right? The hacker stole a bunch of money, but he followed the rules of the protocol. And even though everyone agreed that this guy's a douchebag, we couldn't stop him from having his own currency and maintaining that. So I think it's pretty cool, and it shows that the ethos that this technology brings with it inherently, that you cannot use it to impose against people. It's always going to be opt-in. So that's that story.
Hello.
We need a microphone over to some of these people. Who's got the mic?
I do.
Oh, perfect. Then go ahead and talk.
Hi. I'm speaking from above.
Where are you? Oh,
Right
there
here.
you are.
Hi.
Thank you.
My name is Genesis, and my partner and I, she's in the nonprofit world a lot, so I hear a lot of things that I didn't necessarily know about. Now, I live in San Francisco, so I know a lot. I like to think that I know a lot about technology, more so. And the thing is there are so many nonprofits who know about problems that are happening in third world countries that were not even relevant to me, that I didn't even fully understand, even understanding what I did in this world. So I'm wondering, as people who we tend to geek out on technology itself, right? We tend to really enjoy Bitcoin and the process of that and the technology that has come behind that. What efforts are there going behind trying to explain to nonprofits how to use certain products, right? Even just getting to us, and we're fairly knowledgeable in technology, right? Everyone here is knowledgeable in technology to some degree. How do we get it to people who are later adopters? Sometimes not even adopting Kiva till a couple years later, to adopt the system like yours.
I couldn't agree more. I think that there needs to be way more effort spent specifically on UX and UI, user experience. It's almost an epidemic in the cryptocurrency space. All the CEOs and major people that lead the companies are highly technical people because they're the only ones who really understand it. But that makes there be a disconnect from the rest of the world, right? And so they build products that work and they build protocols that work, but there's not enough effort spent on making it easy to use, making it so that people can just go to a website, click a couple buttons, and their job is done, and it's very intuitive. And I feel like that's the next step, and that's where Ethereum really shines in general, because it is made to be part of a web browser, and it's like you click a button and then something happens on the blockchain. You don't even have to know that something's happening on the blockchain. You can have a Chrome extension, you click a button, all of a sudden money gets sent somewhere, and if you make the UI really simple and special, then all of a sudden people can use it. And I think that's the biggest missing piece. And hopefully soon we're going to start to see some major UX and UI developers joining the space and working on it. But it takes years to do this. We're building like technology that didn't exist before. And so to understand how people want to use it, it takes time to get there. And I really think, like I said before, I want to DAO-ify the burn. I want to DAO-ify Burning Man and the foundation. And it's a 4-year goal. There's no way that we're going to do it anytime soon because the technology is not easy enough to use where it'd be better than what they have. But eventually, I think it'll get to the ethos, right? It will promote the principles better than what they're using now. It'll enable radical inclusion, radical participation, community effort, and all those magical things. Oh, sir, go ahead.
So you're saying there's no organization.
It's okay, you're on camera now. Lucky you.
So, hey, how you doing? Yeah, it's good seeing you. So you're saying there's practically no organization that you know of that's out there that is thinking these things through?
Oh, no, they're just all working on it still. So it takes time to get good UX, good UI. They have to have studies with people using it and where do their eyes go and what are they doing. I would say that there are, I think MyEther Wallet does an incredible job at making it easy to interact with the Ethereum ecosystem. And I'm sure that there's a lot of other companies that are making major efforts in that. But right now, it takes time and we're doing new stuff.
Okay, so then leading to that last one, and I'm sorry, I'm taking up all the time. But the last question is, do you expect your customer to be kind of new age people like us? And therefore it poses a different problem because then we don't have enough understanding of typical world problems as, let's say, nonprofits who have been here for like 20, 30 years.
Yeah, I definitely think that starting out, unfortunately, I have to use the customer base that can understand our crappy product. You know, because we're going to take time to get the UX and UI right, and so we'll have people that want to interact with smart contracts and think it's cool, and those are the first charity systems that will get used. But in the end, the actual once that gets beta tested and we can improve and improve, you know, it's just about taking these steps. And to think that we're going to get it perfect on the first try is ridiculous. You know, once we have a couple users playing with it, I mean, already I'm doing that with Camp Decentral. We're going to learn so much, and we're going to add to it, and then we're going to integrate it because, as a lot of people have said on this stage, the people who really need this technology are not in this country. They're not at Burning Man, that's for sure. There are people in Africa. There are people in impoverished countries that don't have a banking system, don't have a way to communicate with the rest of the world in any value transfer methodology, right? And now that they can communicate with Twitter and the internet, we need to enable value transfer as well. And that's the magic of this tech. I'm going to go to the other field. Thank you, man. How about you? Whoever you are. Oh, wait, who's got a mic?
I got a mic.
Oh, he's the winner.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to ask, sir.
Is it on?
Sorry, is that better? All right. So I worked in peer-to-peer lending, ICOs, a number of different projects throughout the space in like the past 3 years. Most of these were social ventures. And what I kind of went through was like a lot of security issues. I'm just going to talk without it.
Sorry, try this one. We just need it for the audio.
Yeah, it won't work on the recording.
All right,
otherwise.
cool. Yeah, so my experience, there was a lot of negativity. People are still expecting massive profits. Guys are starting venture funds looking for profits. ICOs are popping up with not much social venture. Like, how far away are we from getting to a point where we have like an actual social demographic in this space that wants to contribute on a massive scale, that doesn't want to profit, doesn't expect these types of things, and would also allow someone like Rose to pop into the space and be able to also kind of raise money and not have to worry about security issues as well as kind of, you know, working on her grand scheme.
Security issues are going to take a little bit. We are building new stuff from the ground up, and there are still major security issues going on in our current internet systems. Like, you see these crazy hacks happening all the time. So it will never be perfectly secure. Now, as far as the second part of your question, how long will it take until we see a strong social effort? Well, that's why I'm here today, and that's why this camp is here, so that we can get the burners involved. Because I love this culture, and I want to see these guys participating in blockchain events and pushing actual things that aren't necessarily for profit, that are for social good. You know, blockchain for good. I really think that there's a lot of magic there, and there are lots of projects doing it, but they don't have the funding that these other ones can get when there's a clear profit motive. And so, but once we start some grassroots organizations, you know, that's a major part of what Giveth is trying to do, is trying to put the blockchain power in the hands of people like you guys. Once we start having that, then we'll start seeing it, and it'll start being popular. But it will never be as popular as the people trying to raise money. They have more incentive to put it out there. So, just back for the microphone.
Thanks. I went to a talk yesterday also about the blockchain over on 2 o'clock, and there was a lot of, from the guys talking on stage, there's a lot of enthusiasm about how this is the next really, really big thing for humanity. And it reminded me of how the internet was the next really big thing for humanity, and now the internet, as was pointed out in that talk, is kind of captured by 5 big companies in a large part. And I've been participating in blockchain kind of discussions online, and a lot of it is kind of juvenile, like the message boards and stuff. And you said that a lot of these companies are run by really tech people, and I see that they're also run by white men, and obviously the same problem that tech has. And I'm just really curious about how at the beginning of this thing that obviously has phenomenal potential, how do we avoid just going down the same road that we've gone down with everything else in humanity so far?
Man, I wish I had a good answer. I'm so sorry. You know, like, let Daryl has ideas.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I mean, he's already talked about open source and how things can be copied and expanded. But yeah, the internet is getting co-opted. We are losing net neutrality. It's a big problem. And we may have to switch to some other forms of networking, using mesh networking and some of the other ways that we can send information around. And the blockchains will have the same problems. There'll be power structures that emerge, and there'll be ways to copy them around. Does that answer your question?
Well, not completely, but
I mean, the magic with this is, like I said, you cannot use this system to impose values on other people. Unlike the internet, which is, I mean, we are using the internet, but as long as people have access to the internet, then they're free to choose what blockchain and what community they want to be a part of. Because really, all of these currencies are effectively community currencies. The people who want to use Bitcoin, they're all choosing to use Bitcoin. And if there's a bunch of white males in that and they don't like the way they're running, they don't have to use Bitcoin. They can sell all their Bitcoin and they can move to a currency that does exude those positive values. And in the end, there's going to be some kind of competition. And it's not just an economic competition. It is a social competition, especially when we're using this to solve social problems. So I think that we have some advantage that we've seen what happened with the internet, and we can try to stop these things from happening, and we can learn from our mistakes as a kind of a collective group of individuals, and we can individually choose to go with the ones that we believe in. But we'll see. I mean, this is quite the adventure,
Like, nobody has to use Facebook either. Like right now, it already is a possibility to use something else. But like, just the fact that you don't have to use something doesn't mean that thing won't still be dominant, right?
Facebook is absolutely huge, and one thing is that Facebook Messenger is on the West Coast the dominant form of communication, but it's not the form of communication everywhere in the world. People are choosing to use other things. People in Thailand use like Link, and people in the UK use Telegram, and WhatsApp is all over the place. So and WhatsApp is much better than obviously Facebook Messenger. But so I think that we will find that these incumbent things will eventually lose, even though they're winning right now. This is what decentralization is all about. These guys will lose their power. Facebook will go away. I agree.
Had a quick comment on that. I read a really inspiring interview with Vitalik Buterin, the inventor of Ethereum, where he said that the Ethereum protocol could be used, like right now, the internet is centralized. You have ICANN and whatever else. All these centralized ISPs. It's a central point of failure, but apparently through Ethereum smart contracts, every existing piece of the internet can be incentivized through a smart contract to create peer-to-peer networks, even like existing underground telephone cables. So smart contract at each point. There's no more ISPs, there's no more net neutrality debate, and it can be used to make a fully decentralized internet and make it all completely obsolete. So
this is one of the magics of digital currencies, is that this has the ability to fight the monopolies. The governments have created monopolies around currency, around I actually got this from David Braun, by the way, of Naked Heart. But they have monopolies around currency, around registration of property, around regulation, around force, and all sorts of other things. And blockchains can't stop the monopolization of force, but everything else, it has this amazing ability. We got to remember that people are putting wires in the ground. That people are actually building the roads. It's not the government. There's humans doing this. They live under the story of this government idea, and that's why they're doing it, and that's what gives them the authority. But we don't have to live under that story anymore. We have new technology, and we can create a new, better story. And I'm really excited about that.
This question's more about the platform itself. So one of the things you talked about is just the notion of complete transparency that we want out of this platform, Giveth. And what I'm wondering is that with a lot of charitable organizations, a certain amount of funds are used for discretionary purposes or delayed in effect to basically build the brand of the charity itself. And I'm wondering, is that has there been thought put into how to handle something like a discretionary fund, or the levels of transparency at which like an organization would operate? Because you can imagine that if investors have complete control after how things are spent, they're going to put their money straightly towards like the actual school in the Philippines versus perhaps some of the other things like salaries or philanthropic events to raise for future fundraising. So I was wondering, like, has there been discussion there?
Absolutely. So a lot of the times so we have two kind of ways to do it. You can fund a milestone directly, or you can fund a project. A project would be like, we need 200K to build a school in the Philippines. A milestone might be paying the specific salaries, right? And so every organization gets to choose. I mean, at least with Giveth, we kind of lean on the organization to choose the favorite way. And I want a few people to try it, and then other people will just copy the favorite way, and we'll make it easy and use defaults to make it easy for people to choose the most common choices. But in the end, the level of discretion is up to the organization. If somebody wants to just say, hey, give me 200K to build an orphanage, and I'm not going to do anything special, show you any milestones, just give me the money. If it gets funding, the money will go there. We're not going to stop that. We are just building the software. We are not actually overseeing the system. That's not true. At the beginning, we are acting as an arbitrator, but hopefully other people will act as the arbitrator. In the end, it's always, these things are just Ethereum addresses. So we are the default arbitrator, but if they want a different arbitrator if there's a dispute between, how the money was spent, or if there's fraud or something, or if there's a bug in the contract, which is really the purpose it's there, we can still have this authority. That was one of the problems with the DAO. There was no central point of failure, which meant there was no central point of enforcing security in unforeseen circumstances. So the idea behind this concept, behind Giveth, is to build the smart contracts and let people use them and build the UX and the UI and the interfaces so people can actually determine how they want to run their organization. And to do that in whatever way they want without having to ask permission from anyone. That's the real goal.
So I want to talk a little bit more about the hacking incident you said. So if the community can decide who gets to keep the fund and who doesn't, and who you can seize the funds from, how can you call it a completely decentralized system? A decentralized system is supposed to be out of control of anyone. And I have oh, okay.
So the main thing is that everyone got to choose between, every single person had to choose to upgrade their software. It was decentralized by the fact that if someone was lazy and did nothing, they would end up on the ETC chain where the hacker still had the money. Everyone had to make an active choice and say, I don't want that hacker to have the money. So in that way, it was a decentralized choice because the hacker did have the money from lazy people, not too many lazy people actually, but all the people that wanted to support that code is law and the hacker should be able to steal the money.
And you said you personally supported the idea of taking back the money from the hacker. So my question to you is, where did you draw the line? So it was, I don't know, $40 million or something. You said it's a huge, so where do you draw the line? 40 million, 10 million, 1 million, $100? If somebody steals $100 worth of Ethereum from me, would you support taking it back and giving it to me? Or some other illegal activities, say we find out somebody selling child porn, or that we consider immoral, unethical, whatever, and do we seize their funds as well? And if we continue this process, is it really a decentralized system at the end, or is it just like another bank where the government makes that decision who keeps the fund and who not?
It is decentralized because I get to make the choice, and you get to make your choice, and everyone gets to make their choice to opt in to the system that they want to use. So if all of a sudden Ethereum gets used for child porn all day, every day, I'm not going to touch that currency. I'm not into that, and that's me making that choice. But that if the rest of the community wants to keep that, then they will keep value. The real magic of this system and digital currencies in general is that it shows that value is in the eye of the beholder. That value is determined by every individual, and it's the aggregation of those of that value that determines the price. right? This is the way the markets work, blah, blah, blah. And so if all of a sudden Ethereum is always used for child porn, and some people fork it, and they have one currency that's not allowed for child porn, and then there's the old Ethereum that is being used for child porn. Well, which one's going to have more value? It's going to be the ones that the people want to be a part of. It's going to be the general, like the because money actually is an incredibly decentralizing force. Like, don't get me wrong, I hate the way money works, but that's because I'm spoiled and live in this world that money is already created, that we have all of this infrastructure, and money itself is a decentralizing force. It determines value in a decentralized way. Everyone gets to choose what value this box has, you know? To me, it has this value. To Daryl, it has that value. And if someone wants to buy it, you know, it's the person who matches you know, the buying and selling, right? And so it's the same in currencies. And if the child porn Ethereum has a lot of value to a lot of people, then it will be worth a lot. But I'm going to fork, and I'm sure a lot of other people would fork, and we would stake the money from the child porn guys, because screw those guys. And I bet that currency will have more value, and that's our bet. But thank you, man. Thank you.
So I want to give you a real world example. I came into this. I just walked in the tent. Right, I didn't know about any of this kind of stuff. So in my case, I happen to have created National Public Radio in Spanish. So we provide daily programming in Espanol, and we have 8.5 million listeners a week, you know, throughout the United States, 34 states and Puerto Rico. I'm technically quasi-illiterate, but you know, I can use my smartphone. Most of our listeners have smartphones, but they're not, you know, so it's easy enough to do the part in Spanish. So my question for you would be, as a real-world example, let's say we wanted to engage our listeners who normally don't contribute, it's farm workers, janitors and stuff, to put money into a scholarship fund so we can then distribute money to applicants, you know, like small sums to go to community college. How would that work in the real world? So you have the janitor lady who wants to contribute, let's say $10 to amass, and then everybody can vote on which kids get the money.
So in our baseline system, there is no voting. The people who donate get to decide where their money goes, and that's a really critical part of our system. However, the delegate, for instance, when I'm saying someone donates and they're assigned a delegate, the delegate could be a group of voting. It could just be a voting system, a smart contract that allows for voting. Hey, how am I doing on time? Jordy's standing behind me, and I definitely want to let him talk.
4:24 p.m.
Okay, cool. No. Okay, so in this situation, you could, you know, you still have to have. The problem is we still live in this world where money is important and people need schooling, right? So if you want to go the same old route, then you have to get somebody to donate money to support this project. However, what's really exciting is you could get a bunch of people in the same room, in the same chat room. And you have the goal of Giveth is to build a community. And maybe there's some innovative way that you could create some kind of co-op that doesn't require that much funding. That could get a really, you know, you get a couple grants to support this. You convert that you get that into your DAC, and all of a sudden you have a community that's supporting itself and supporting each other, especially in the local space. But maybe you don't need a local space anymore. Maybe you could, since you have 35 or 34 states and Puerto Rico, you know, people could do online courses, and you say, hey, we want to raise funds or whatever. Well, yeah, raising funds seems like the easiest way to start getting something done. But my goal is to like evolve past that and just get people talking to each other, people that are interested in the idea, and maybe they can start doing online courses and start teaching, build their own certification. You know, build something in your own community that supports each other, because I think you're going to have a lot of trouble funding that, right? Like all these people that are really interested in it, like you're saying, they're janitors and they're not necessarily people who have the money to give away because they got to feed their kids. But maybe if you get everyone there, they can share resources more effectively beyond the monetary realm with the time and the effort, because any problem can be solved with time, money, or effort. You know, and money is a major part, and that's the part that makes everyone fucking weird, you know? Like when you start looking at dollar signs, there's something weird that goes off in your head because money is broken as far as I'm concerned. But if we can build a system of transparency and accountability that kind of eases that weirdness, then everyone else can work together to build something cool.
Hello. I don't know too much about this sort of stuff. So my first question is, how far out is this system from being like casually used by people? And two, what efforts are there to like bring? Because I mean, this is a super cool talk. A lot of stuff I don't understand because it's kind of kind of techie and whatnot. So there's like GoFundMe sort of things where moms who have sick kids can raise funds, but they take a cut, and that's kind of brutal because that could go towards someone who really needs it. So what are the efforts being done to like educate people who could use this super casually, both like parents and things like that, and young people who could be possible future innovators to make the system more incredible, usable, blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Time frame is really hard. Software sucks like that. Like, it's just the world that it is. You can get stuck on a bug and all of a sudden there goes a month, really. So it's hard to say. I would say that we're going to have a usable product by December, but not usable by the mom who has a sick kid. It's going to be usable by the tech guy who's interested in Ethereum. We have some major issues like we're using smart contracts. They use Ethereum, right? How do you turn fiat money into Ethereum? Okay, that's going to be a major barrier. I'm hoping someone else will just solve that for me and I can integrate it. And this is the cool thing though with the Ethereum ecosystem. There's so many individual groups working on individual problems that once all those pieces are built, they can just be assembled in any way that you want. So hopefully a lot of these problems will be solved. The biggest thing for me is UI UX. That's my biggest concern. And once we get there, then normal people can use it. We are somewhat similar to GoFundMe, except that GoFundMe doesn't connect the people. You don't get to actually talk to the person, the mom on Facebook. Like, that'd be cool. You get to see a video of her, but I want to get everyone in the same room, digital room at least. So timeline is tough. I actually do think though that we're getting to the point where decentralized autonomous organizations will be usable by normal organizations within 3 years. Probably 2 years for some and 4 years for most. So that's my guess. Can we get a mic over there, or who's got a mic?
Right here. Hello. So I'm from Zimbabwe in Africa, the poorest country in the world. How does somebody like me who makes $200 a month get access to Bitcoin? Of course, I have a mobile phone, but is it something that's like tilted towards the rich people in first world countries, or anybody else in the world? Like, how do I get involved?
There's some magical systems out there. Daryl just mentioned local Bitcoins, which this is the cool thing. People on in the digital currency space, it's all about permissionless innovation and accessibility for anyone. The magic of Bitcoin is that it's not for the rich, it's not for the poor, it's not for anyone. It's really for computers. That is, if you have a smartphone, you're golden. Because the way Bitcoins are stored and the way all digital currencies are stored is you just have to have a really large secret number. The number is really huge, don't get me wrong, and as long as you have that on your phone, you can receive money from anyone, anywhere in the world. So I would say that Bitcoin and Ether and all these things are actually much more accessible in Zimbabwe than even like Danish krona or other small currencies. Because to get Danish krona to Zimbabwe, I mean, you're gonna have to go through at least the U.S. dollar or the euro or some other currency to then go into Zimbabwe, and there's going to be people taking cuts all along the way. Whereas if I'm in Denmark or wherever, I can just send to your secret number, which has its own public number that I would send to. That's just how cryptography works. Sorry guys, I don't want to explain Bitcoin, but yeah, so I can send it directly to you, and there's no middleman. In fact, one of the interesting things about the way digital currencies works, as I just said, I wasn't going to do that, but I'm not even sending anything. It's really a title change, right? I'm saying I have my secret number that owns a portion of Bitcoin, and all the Bitcoin is just sitting there on this, ledger, right, on the blockchain. And I'm saying I don't own this anymore. This guy does. Whoever this person, whatever this secret number is, this secret number now has possession of that Bitcoin, has title to that Bitcoin. So it's actually, you don't even have to send anything. It's really easy. They're going to have satellites in space. I mean, Bitcoin is really unstoppable. Digital currencies are going to be unstoppable forms of value transfer for anyone in the world. And that's why China, people in China are really excited about it, because the major capital controls, you know, they can send money, they can take value out of the country easily with Bitcoin, and they can, it's got this permissionless point to it that is just so magical. But anyway, that was my rant. Anyone else? Oh, wait, microphone.
So, can you see this becoming the newest currency? Can you see this becoming the newest currency in a place like Zimbabwe, where their currencies are completely devalued? Is this going to take over?
Well, you know, it's interesting. Kenya has this M-Pesa, which is a digital currency that people use on their phones to send around. I think that there needs to be major people. I don't know. I'm not from Africa. I mean, honestly, maybe. What do you think, man? Do you think that this could be a currency that could take over? That
I think it could. Because Zimbabwe now, they're actually using the US dollar. They're not even using their own currency, right? Zimbabwe now uses the US dollar because our own currency is valueless. So I think it could. I really think it could.
I was hanging out with Jordy and a couple of my friends at Giveth, and we had this really exciting idea for Venezuela. Venezuela is going through the same kind of hyperinflation that Zimbabwe went through several years ago. And wouldn't it be incredible to start a campaign for exactly that? Let's make Ether or Bitcoin the digital currency, the main currency of Venezuela for the Venezuelan people. You don't have to. Right? So, this is the thing. In a place like Venezuela, where the volatility is horrible and it's going down already, that's not really a problem. So the question was, how do you deal with volatility? Well, the volatility in Ether and Bitcoin is up. So people like to hold it. People like that money. Whereas the volatility of the Venezuelan peso is horrible as well, and it's crashing. I don't know if it's the peso. I don't know what their currency is. Yeah. But, well, okay. So we have this idea of starting a Giveth campaign where, hey, who wants to do this? Make this idea, right? Let's make Bitcoin the main currency of Venezuela. Let's put a bunch of Ether in a smart contract. We'll give everyone mycelium wallets on their smartphone, and every time someone downloads the mycelium wallet on their phone, you can take a picture of yourself doing it, like a little selfie, submit that to a smart contract, and then you get $20 worth of Bitcoin on your mycelium wallet for getting somebody. Kind of like, what do they call those things where you like get somebody? Not up here. Referral bonuses, exactly, referrals. So you could just do that kind of thing, and all of a sudden it could spread, and that could be done by anyone. However, our system isn't done, so can't do it. Anyway.
The last question.
Okay.
Hey, I'm Michael from Austin, Texas. And I see the way that solar panels and batteries are helping us go towards this decentralization of power generation. And I'm not so familiar with the technology that you're talking about, but I have this idea, and I'm just curious if it's possible through the blockchain technology. Assuming we could wirelessly transmit energy, could there be a way to facilitate peer-to-peer energy sales of my excess solar energy from Austin, Texas, to someone in Zimbabwe who needs energy, assuming there's a satellite, like you said, in a software marketplace where we can agree on a price? Could blockchain support that?
Blockchain could support that. Those are a lot of ifs. I'm just going to throw that out there. But blockchain could definitely support that because it's international value transfer, and that is easier to do with digital currency than currently today with any other way. So, but thank you guys. Thank you so much. It was really fun. And thank you for coming.
Sandstorm.